She never asked his name, never judged his ragged coat or his silence. She just poured his coffee every morning like it mattered. Then one day, he didn't show up. But 4 bodyguards and 2 lawyers did, and they were looking for her. If you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let's get into it. The morning shift started at 6 a.m. sharp. Lucia always got there by 5:45, hair pulled back, apron tied, sneakers worn to the tread. The coffee was already brewing when she unlocked the front door. Booths wiped. Silverware rolled. She didn't complain. She didn't stall. She just did the work. Every day was the same. Except for the man in booth 4. He came in just after 7:30. Never late. Never early. Same seat. Same order. Black coffee. 2 eggs. Dry toast. No substitutions. No small talk. His coat was threadbare. 1 button missing. Shoes scuffed at the soles. But his manners were perfect. Thank you, miss. Appreciate it. He always left a $5 tip folded into the receipt. The other waitresses didn't like taking his table. Said he smelled like dust. That he was probably homeless. Or worse, just weird. But Lucia always volunteered. Not because he was special, but because he wasn't. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't stare at his phone. He didn't talk politics or flirt or act entitled. He just was quiet, still, polite. And every morning she greeted him with the same words. Good to see you, sir. The usual. He'd nod, sometimes with the smallest smile. That was their rhythm. 2 people sharing silence over coffee and toast. Lucia didn't have a big life. She worked 6 days a week. Took night classes when she could afford them. Rented a tiny 1-bedroom 2 blocks from the diner. No parents in the picture. No boyfriend. Just bills and bus rides and aching feet. But something about that man made the mornings feel less hollow. He didn't talk about her life, but he noticed when she limped. When she looked tired. Once, when she came in with a split lip from tripping on the subway stairs, he said, "You okay?" and looked her in the eye longer than usual. She just nodded. That was enough. One time, during a snowstorm, she gave him her backup gloves. They were old, stretched out, and barely warm, but she handed them over like they were new. He didn't say thank you. But he wore them the next day. Then one morning he didn't come in. Lucia noticed by 7:32. By 7:40, she kept glancing out the window. By 8 o'clock, she told herself maybe he was sick, or stuck, or had finally moved on. But the next day, his seat was still empty. So was the next. And the next. She never knew his name. Couldn't call. Couldn't ask. She just kept pouring an extra cup of coffee every morning and setting it down at booth 4. Even if no one ever drank it. Exactly 1 week after his disappearance, they arrived. 2 black cars. For men in suits. And 2 more in tailored coats who didn't look like they belonged in this part of town. Lucia was filling salt shakers when they entered. The entire diner fell quiet. The shorter man, dark suit, leather folder in hand, stepped forward. Lucia Alvarez? She blinked, startled. Yes. He extended a card. Legal firm. Downtown address. We're here on behalf of Mr. Alistair Hayes. She stared. I don't know who that is. The man smiled gently. Yes. You do. He nodded toward booth 4. And suddenly her breath caught. Because that name, that face on the paper he pulled from his folder, it was him. The old man. The eggs and dry toast. The worn coat and $5 bills. The one she gave gloves to. May we speak with you privately? The lawyer asked. She nodded, dazed. He gestured to the back room. The 4 bodyguards stayed outside. Customers whispered. The cook peeked from the kitchen. No one moved. Lucia followed the lawyers into the break room, heart pounding. The door closed. And everything she thought she knew about her life began to shift. Have you ever shown kindness to someone you thought had nothing to give, and later realized they were the one who changed you? Tell me in the comments. The break room smelled like old coffee and bleach. Lucia sat across from 2 sharply dressed men in wool coats. One opened a leather folder. The other remained quiet, hands folded, posture military straight. She held her breath. "Lucia," the first said, his voice calm but deliberate, "I understand this is unexpected. We're here on behalf of the estate of Alistair Hayes." She blinked. "You mean the man from booth 4? He nodded. "Yes. But he wasn't just a customer. Mr. Hayes was a private client. Very private. He maintained a low profile for the last decade of his life. No photographs. No press." Lucia shook her head, trying to catch up. "I don't understand." "He looked ordinary. He made it a point to." The man slid a document across the table. Her name was printed at the top. Her full name. She stared at it. "What is this?" "His last instructions," he said. "Signed. Notarized. Updated only a month ago." Lucia didn't touch it. "He spoke of you often," the man continued. "Said you were the only person who treated him like he still mattered. I just brought him breakfast." The lawyer nodded. "Every day. Same booth. Same tone. You never asked questions. Never looked away." Lucia's eyes burned, but she didn't cry. "Before he passed," the lawyer added, "he left you something. Something he insisted be delivered in person." He pulled a small envelope from his coat. Cream-colored. Thick. Her name written in steady handwriting. Lucia took it with trembling fingers. Inside was a letter. A single sheet. She unfolded it. "Lucia, you were kind to me when no one else was. You didn't know who I was. You didn't care. You brought me coffee like I mattered. You gave me gloves when you thought I was cold. You smiled, not out of pity, but out of humanity. That changed everything. I spent a lifetime surrounded by people who wanted what I had. You were the only one who gave without asking. So now, I want you to have something too. Use it however you wish. But know this, you mattered. To me. Every single morning." By the time she looked up, her throat was tight. "What did he leave me?" The lawyer tapped the folder. "The trust. Assets. Property. He's designated you as a primary beneficiary." Lucia leaned back. "You've got the wrong person." "No, we don't." He barely spoke. He noticed everything. She gripped the edge of the table. "How much?" The man hesitated. "It's substantial." "Like?" The second man finally spoke. 8.2 million. The room tilted. Lucia laughed, not because it was funny, but because her brain had no better response. "I serve pancakes," she said. "I have $42 in my bank account." The lawyer offered a sympathetic smile. "Not anymore." They left her with paperwork, a business card, and one final note. "Take time to process. There's no rush." But time didn't help. The next morning she still woke at 5:30. Still tied her apron. Still brewed the coffee. She poured a cup for booth 4. Set it down. Stared at the empty seat. And this time, the absence hit harder than ever. Not because she missed a customer. Because she missed a man she never really knew, but somehow trusted. That afternoon, she walked to the city library. Asked for everything she could find on Alistair Hayes. Most of it was old. A few magazine covers. A grainy photo of a man in his 30s at a charity gala. Tech investor. Quiet billionaire. Known for disappearing from public life after a business betrayal. One quote stayed with her. "When you lose faith in people, you learn to value the ones who see you before they Google you." Lucia closed the book and sat in silence. He'd been testing the world. She, without knowing it, had passed. Lucia didn't quit her job. Not yet. She still showed up at 5:45, brewed the same coffee, wiped the same counters. But she stopped pouring a cup for booth 4. That hurt more than she expected. The lawyers called 3 times that week. She didn't answer. A letter came next, polite, urging her to sit down with a financial advisor. "There are decisions to be made," it said. "Things to secure. Opportunities to build." Lucia tucked it into the back of her locker, behind an old apron and a packet of instant oatmeal. She wasn't ready. "You win the lottery or something?" It was Carla, another waitress, watching her count out tip money absent-mindedly. Lucia blinked. What? You've been off, Carla said. Quieter than usual. I'm always quiet. Yeah, but this feels like something else. Lucia offered a half shrug. Just tired. It wasn't a lie. But it wasn't the truth either. That night, she stood in front of a small one-bedroom apartment she couldn't afford 2 weeks ago, and now could buy in cash. She didn't go in. She just stared at the door. She remembered every time the rent was late. The months she skipped dinner so her bills stayed paid. The cheap locks. The thin walls. The neighbors who yelled through the night. She should have felt triumphant. Instead she felt small. On Saturday, she went to the cemetery. There was no funeral. No public memorial. Just a headstone. Alistair H. Hayes, a quiet man. A generous heart. She knelt beside it. Set down a coffee cup. But no cream. No sugar. She stayed until the wind picked up, her knees numb from the cold stone path. I don't know how to carry this, she whispered. No one answered. But the silence didn't feel empty. Just waiting. By Sunday, the envelope from the lawyers was back in her hands. She opened it again. Read it slower this time. A single line caught her eye. If you wish to decline the inheritance, there are processes in place. But Mr. Hayes was firm in his wish. This was never about reward. It was about remembrance. Remembrance. That word stayed with her all night. Because that's what she'd given him, without realizing it. A place to belong again. A table. A face. A moment that said, you're still here. You're still human. Was she allowed to accept the same? The next morning, she made a choice. She didn't quit the diner. She just changed booths. She sat in booth 4. Ordered black coffee and dry toast. Watched the sun rise through the front window. And whispered, okay. The invitation came in a navy blue envelope, hand-delivered by a man who didn't smile. Lucia opened it in the back alley behind the diner. Thick cardstock. Raised ink. Private estate reading. Final instructions of Alistair H. Hayes. Confidentiality clause stamped at the bottom. She nearly threw it away. But something in her chest said, go. The estate wasn't a mansion. It was a house, old brick, ivy-covered, tucked into the trees on the edge of the city. Not flashy. Just still. The bodyguards were waiting. So were the lawyers. Inside, 3 other people stood by the fireplace. Well-dressed. Polished. Watchful. Lucia stepped in, suddenly aware of her thrifted shoes and diner name tag purse. One of the lawyers cleared his throat. This is Lucia Alvarez, he said. Mr. Hayes's final guest. The oldest woman turned, frowning. Why is the waitress here? Lucia froze. But the lead lawyer replied before she could. Because Mr. Hayes asked her to be. The room went quiet. Introductions were tense. A former business partner. A distant cousin. A financial advisor with a voice like glass. They all looked at Lucia like she was a clerical error. The reading was brief. Hayes had left assets to charity. Property to the cousin. Stocks to his former partner. And then to Lucia, not just money. Not just a trust. But his house. Guess. Whispers. A scoff. She barely knew him, someone said. But the lawyer didn't flinch. She knew him better than any of you in the last 10 years. Lucia wanted to disappear. She didn't argue. Didn't explain. Just stood there, clutching her hands so tightly her knuckles burned. Afterward, one of the women cornered her near the front door. He was testing us, you know, she said. Lucia blinked. Excuse me? Alistair. Always watching. Always waiting to see who cracked. The woman stepped closer. I guess you passed. Lucia didn't know what to say. Be careful with that house, the woman added. It's not just bricks. It's memory. Then she walked out. Lucia visited the property alone the next day. The keys were cold in her hand. The house creaked like it was holding its breath. Inside, everything was preserved. A worn coat by the door. Coffee mugs in the cabinet. Bookshelves lined with hardcovers and old photographs turned face down. She wandered room to room, silent. In the study, she found a journal. First page, blank. Second page. She brings me coffee like it's sacred. I think she knows I'm fading. She sat down. Read the next line 3 times. I don't want to be forgotten by the world I once helped build. She closed the journal, held it to her chest, and in that moment, for the first time since the envelope arrived, she felt something she couldn't name. Not pride. Not shock. Responsibility. Later that night, she brewed a pot of coffee, poured a cup, sat at his kitchen table, and whispered into the quiet house, I'm still here. The house was too quiet. Not peaceful. Empty. Lucia had spent 3 nights there now. Each one felt longer than the last. She didn't unpack. Didn't touch the closets or drawers. She kept her shoes by the door, her bag on the chair, like she was just visiting. Like the walls might reject her if she settled in too far. Every time she crossed the threshold, she felt like an intruder. On the 4th night, she sat in the study, the same room where she found the journal. The fireplace cold. The lights dim. Just her and a silence she couldn't outrun. She opened the journal again. Flipped pages. One entry stopped her. I spent my life building companies. Partnerships. Legacies. But this woman, this stranger, reminded me how to be human again. And I'm afraid she'll never understand how much that saved me. She shut the book. And cried. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quietly. Deeply. Like something inside her had loosened without permission. The next morning, she drove back to the diner. She wasn't on the schedule. She just needed the sound of dishes. The smell of coffee. The normal. Carla spotted her by the entrance. You here to visit or take your shift back? She teased. Lucia smiled. Barely. I just wanted to sit. Booth 4's open, Carla said softly. Lucia slid into the seat. The cushion still leaned slightly to the left. The table wobbled just a little. She ran her fingers over the edge. Familiar. 1, 2. Carla brought her a cup of coffee without asking. But no cream. No sugar. Lucia stared at it. Then finally said aloud, What if I don't deserve any of it? Carla sat down across from her. No jokes. Just her and the steam between them. You think he left it to you because you earned it? Carlet. Lucia shrugged. I don't know. Maybe he felt sorry for me. Maybe he was lonely. Maybe he was finally seen, Carla said. And maybe that mattered more than anything he ever bought. Lucia didn't respond. Because deep down she knew it was true. But knowing didn't make it easier. That night she returned to the house again. She walked room to room barefoot. This time, she opened drawers. Touched photographs. Sat on the edge of the bed no one had slept in for weeks. In the back corner of the closet, she found a box. Labeled. For her. When she's ready. She carried it to the dining table and opened it carefully. Inside, a framed photo of her pouring coffee at the diner, grainy, taken through the window. Her gloves, folded and clean, with a small handwritten tag, kept these. And a letter. Longer than the one she'd already read. Lucia, if you're reading this, you stayed. Thank you. This house is yours. But more than that, the story is yours now. Don't shrink away from it. I know you'll want to. I know that voice that tells you to stay small, to keep your head down. I lived under that voice for decades. It's a liar. You gave me dignity when I felt like a ghost. You made me feel visible. Let this home be your reminder that you were never invisible. Not to me. Not to the world. Not to the future that's waiting for you now. She folded the letter slowly. Sat in silence. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she was borrowing the space she stood in. She felt like she was becoming it. Lucia woke up before sunrise. For the first time, she didn't flinch at the unfamiliar ceiling. She didn't reach for her phone. She didn't think about the diner. She just lay there in Alistair's old room, beneath sheets that still smelled like cedar and linen, and stared into the soft blue of morning. It was quiet but not empty. She got up. No rush. No alarm. She brewed a pot of coffee in the kitchen, the same way she had at the diner, with her hands, not a machine. Slowly. Purposefully. The mug warmed her fingers. She didn't sit at the island. She carried the cup to the dining table. The one where he used to write. Where the letter had waited. Where the gloves had been left just for her. She opened the windows. Let the light in. And whispered to the air, I'm ready. She started small. Unpacked one box. Hung a photograph in the hallway, not of Alistair, but of the diner. A picture someone had once taken during a winter storm. She and Carla stood behind the glass, laughing. She put her books on his shelves. Filled the fridge with real food. Called the lawyer and set the appointment. No one told her how to move forward. But she was moving now. And it felt good. A week later, she visited the community center 2 blocks away. Asked to speak to someone about starting a literacy program. I don't have experience, she said. But I have time. And space. They looked confused. She offered her name. Something shifted. Oh, the woman said softly. You're her. Lucia smiled gently. I guess I am. The lawyer arrived the next day, briefcase in hand. They met in the study. No bodyguards this time. No tension. He laid out the documents, one by one. Trust access. Property deed. Business transfer options. I want to keep the house, she said. Live in it. Use it. He nodded. And I want to set up something. For people like me. For the ones working doubles and still barely making rent. His brow lifted. You're thinking of starting a foundation? I'm thinking of giving what I was given. Just on purpose. He sat back. Studied her face. You don't look unsure anymore. I'm not, she said. And she wasn't. Not anymore. Later, she found another letter, tucked in a book on the shelf. To whoever comes after me. You'll never know everything about me. That's fine. But know this, I didn't build this house with wealth. I built it with memory. And if you live in it with kindness, it will never be empty again. Lucia smiled through tears. She folded the page and slid it into her pocket. That night, she sat at the table again. Same coffee. Same chair. Only this time, it wasn't in his memory. It was hers now. 6 months later, the house felt lived in. Lucia had painted the study a soft gray. Started a morning writing habit at the old dining table. A notebook, a black pen, 1 page a day. The gloves still sat on the windowsill. She couldn't bring herself to put them in a drawer. The literacy program launched quietly. No ribbon cutting. No media. Just a sign on the old library door. Read with dignity. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 to 8 p.m. No questions asked. People came. Not many at first. A few construction workers. A tired grandmother. A girl who couldn't look her in the eye but never missed a session. Lucia stayed late every week. Swept the floors. Never gave speeches. Just listened. Just stayed. Sometimes, after closing, she'd sit outside on the steps. One night, Carla joined her, still in her diner uniform, coffee in hand. You live in a mansion now, she said. And still show up to sweep floors. Lucia smiled. It's not a mansion. It's just a house. Carla laughed. Right. They sat quietly. Then Carla added, he picked the right person. Lucia looked down. I don't know. I do, she said. You made someone feel human again. Lucia let that settle in. Then said, so did he. Later that week, she visited the cemetery. This time she brought 2 cups. Set one down by the stone. Held the other in both hands. Still drinking it black, she murmured. Wind moved softly through the trees. She didn't cry. Not this time. She just was. She turned to leave, then paused. From her coat pocket, she pulled out a folded photo, the one of her pouring coffee in the diner. She tucked it gently under a corner of the gravestone. He saw me, she whispered. And then, with a smile that didn't hurt anymore. And I saw him. On the anniversary of the day he stopped showing up, she opened the diner at dawn. Just for 1 hour. Just her. She cleaned booth 4. Brewed a fresh pot. Set 2 cups down across from each other. One for her. One for him. The door stayed locked. No customers came. But the sun rose through the window exactly the way it always had. And for a moment, the world felt right. She didn't speak. Didn't need to. Because some stories don't end with a line. They end with a seat kept warm. A name remembered. And a life that keeps going, quietly, meaningfully, in the places where kindness once sat. Have you ever been changed by a small kindness you didn't see coming? Or helped someone without knowing how deeply it mattered? Tell your story in the comments. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.